Hello, and welcome back to Suspended Fanimation. I'm your host, Dennis Bithoulkas, and it's time for another episode of Is It Worth My Time? And this time around, the animated Netflix series Pacific Rim The Black. Welcome, everybody. And this is season 1, by the way, of Pacific Rim The Black. Welcome, everybody. Let me take care of some business, and then we'll get down to it. If you like what you see here, like, share, and subscribe. If you're still on the fence about subscribing, take a look at the video that pops up at the very end here. Basically, YouTube takes the algorithms of all the stuff you've been watching, tries to match it as best as possible to one of the videos in my vast video library, and pops it up there just for you. And if you like what you see there, hit that subscribe button down below there. Also, if you want to know when I'm be on live again next, you get the bell down below. It's a 50-50 chance of YouTube actually notifying you. Best thing to do is go to suspendedfanimation.com. Take a look at the schedule up there. I change it out every week. I change it out today, as a matter of fact. And I also have all the links to my social media there as well. So Twitter, Instagram, Patreon. No tier set on the Patreon. Wait until I hit 1,000 subscribers. I'm very, very close. I got one person who keeps subscribing and unsubscribing, subscribing and unsubscribing, and subscribing. You know who you are out there. And also I have the links to this YouTube channel, my Facebook page, and for those of you who still have Facebook, a Facebook group page where you guys can post stuff and chat amongst yourselves. Hey, Joe Greer. What's shaking? All right. So, as promised, the non-spoiler review first. So, as you know, we had 2 Pacific Rim movies, one that was good and one that was not so good. And that was the second one, of course, Pacific Rim Uprising, or as I like to call it, Uprising of Vomit. Because, yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. Really, 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 really bad. So, of course, Netflix, I believe, was going to do a live action series at one point. Then they're like, nope, fuck it. We're going to do an animated series instead. And this is the result. This series does not feel like it was originally supposed to be a Pacific Rim story, that maybe it was started off life as something else and couldn't get sold. And so it got married to Pacific Rim. Yeah. The animation didn't really do it for me either. I'm just going to say, or I should say the animation style didn't do it for me, just because of the shading. It's that really weird off shading and just funky kind of animation just didn't really do it for me. But then there's the story. Yeah, the story is so basically what it is you have Australia. It takes place in Australia. The kaiju have basically taken over Australia at this point, and people are screwed. The Jaegers have gone off to the coast for some reason because kaiju are popping up out of the ground now, not out of the water like they were in the movies, but they are popping up out of the ground. And that's where the fissures are starting. And basically, we jump ahead 5 years after all of that, and we have the kids of 2 Jaeger pilots that we're following. So this is what we're going through with this series. And yeah, not the best of series. I know there's a lot of people that like it out there. I've read the tweets and stuff like that people are really enjoying this. I was not one of them. Especially at the end, there are some characters that are introduced and some ideas that are introduced. So some of the ideas are okay, which I'll get to in the spoiler version of this. But yeah, and I'm just gonna say it because it's not gonna spoil anything for you. But the Kaiju Messiah thing, no, that was just that was pretty ridiculous, quite honestly. And I'll say this: if you're a fan of Pacific Rim, I was the first movie. You may like it, you may not. You might be on the fence. It's a 50-50 for anybody at this point. If you're a fan of, I would almost say if you're a fan of video games that don't really make much sense on this one, and I'm not saying this to be mean to it or anything like that, but there were some things that didn't make a lot of sense. You may like it, but I can't recommend this. I'm gonna give it a thumbs down. I'm gonna say, yeah, it's not worth your time. And yeah, unless you're really, really bored and you've reached the end of the internet and you've got nothing else to watch, go for it. I fell asleep a couple of times during this whole series. I made it through the whole season, but yeah, I fell asleep a couple of times. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Joker. There's so much content out there. It was so slow, is what it was. The storyline was so slow. There was stuff that needed to be moved ahead, and your two main characters that we were dealing with were so fucking stupid. They kept making the same mistakes over and over again, and you got to the point where you're just like, just let them die. Really let them die at this point because, yeah, it was that annoying. Really. I just got to the point where I just kind of wanted them to die. But yeah, that's when you're not invested in the story is when you want the main characters to die. So can't recommend it. Not worth your time. Like I said, unless you're really desperate for content, and then go for it. So with that said, spoiler alert, I am going to spoil the rest of this. If you haven't seen it, good for you. Um, you can come on back. This will be a video. And then you can comment down below in the comment section. All right. All right. Fuck, man, the Kaiju Messiah. That's all I can say. So the interesting concepts here are ghost drifting. That you can actually ghost drift with pilots that are in a basically their memories are in a data bank. Um, so you always wonder, okay, you're using machines in order to meld minds with somebody else. So obviously that data's got to be out there someplace. Well, do all the Jaegers have access to this? Obviously so. We have a sassy AI, which I liked actually. Loa wasn't a bad AI. It was again kind of a neat AI character, and she has access to all pilots who have piloted a Jaeger and also who have ghost piloted a Jaeger. Basically, ghost piloting is they don't have a second pilot, so they use their own willpower. We saw this in the very first movie. We also saw this in the second movie as well. And of course, there's only been 3 pilots that have actually done this and lived. And what the interesting thing about this is they actually say that when one of the main characters, of course, does this, Taylor, when he does this, he actually ends up absorbing the some of the memories of the ghost pilot, which was from the first movie. One of the guys from the first movie, actually, and so he remembers people that he shouldn't remember because he never, was involved with them, and that was an interesting theory that was put in there. The other one was the precursors. The precursors are the ones that are sending the kaiju through the rifts and everything. They have sent kaiju that look like people. So he and Taylor and his sister, Haley, they've actually found this kid in a vat called Boy. They just call him Boy, and it turns out that he can turn into a kaiju. Yeah, we find this out in the last episode that he can turn into a kaiju, and it turns out that he is from the precursors. So they actually have made people that look like us, like humans that can actually turn into kaiju. And obviously, he sent him through they were sending him through the rift. So that was interesting. It was until we see Boy turn into a kaiju and he fights Copperhead, the main bad kaiju that's been following our heroes throughout this entire story. And he gets trapped under some rubble. And at the very end, we see these 3 humans, I guess you could say. They're wearing masks and robes, and they walk up, and one of them says, "My sisters, we found the Kaiju Messiah." Dun dun dun. That's where we leave off on the season. That was just kinda stupid, honestly. I don't know if they could have just found a better name for it or something like that. So, mm, yeah, I wasn't feeling it. The smaller kaiju though, like the dog-like kaiju that were running through the streets was interesting, but again, I was like, "Why?" I mean, and there were two dog-like in order to I would have rather had them be more arthropods in a way, kind of more bug-like or just fitting more with the kaiju uh, line that we've seen throughout the movies. Well, throughout the movies, basically, instead of making them dog-like, and that would have just been more horrifying, I think, having them skitter through everything, and yeah. But again, that's a minor quibble on that one. Penn says, "So watch Devil May Care instead." Hell no. Devil May Care. I don't know, man. If I had to choose between the 2, I'd probably watch, this, it's really it's such a close tie on this one. I would probably pick the Pacific Rim one over Devil May Care. Devil May Care is just not that great. Yeah. It's really that much of a defining line, I guess you could say. Ah. So, yes, it's not worth your time. Skip it. Um, yeah. And I mean, they bring in a new Jaeger. They bring in a couple of new Jaegers. So Atlas Destroyer is the new Jaeger that they bring in, and Loa, of course, is the AI for that one. And I liked Loa. I mean, that was actually probably the best character. The other thing was they bring in, I guess you could say, the a bad guy that is out in the outback, and he's stealing kids, I guess, and turning them into gang members and whatnot. And that whole thing was just kind of stupid in and of itself as well. So Shane is that character, and of course he had taken May or Mai and I guess brainwashed her. He's been using the drift in order to break people's minds and of people that he finds. And of course, we find this out that he's using the drift to actually change memories. So that's what he's done with Mai. So that's another interesting idea. But again, it was something that we really didn't need. It actually slowed down the plot. Unless you were going to bring something into the first season there that was going to be relevant to that, I don't see why it was there. So yeah, it's just kind of it was a dangling thread that went nowhere whatsoever. And this is a Netflix Joker, so I have where all these things go in the description of this video here. So yeah, or where they're from, I should say. So yeah, this is from Netflix. And yeah, there's just a couple, like I said, going back and looking at it, it irks me. It really does irk me. And it's these little attention to detail things and not moving the story along. And the story is that basically Haley and Taylor are looking for their parents, who are Jaeger pilots, that were going to Sydney, and they left the kids in this little oasis thing in the middle of nowhere, essentially. And 5 years later, um, the kids end up, or I should say, Haley finds Atlas Destroyer, turns it on, which ends up bringing Copperhead the kaiju into their little valley and destroying, killing everybody. Yeah. And of course, they could go and set out to see if they can find their parents 5 years later out in Sydney. So, road trip, in a Jaeger. It, I don't know. There could have been more interesting stories there for this, but like I said, this felt like some other story that was kind of just shoehorned into the Pacific Rim world. Is really what it felt like. But yeah, far be it for me. Like I said, I know a lot of people like this. I am not one of them. But there you go. Maybe I'm just not the right age group. Maybe I'm just too fucking old at this point. All right. So, what else do I have going on this week? Well, tomorrow I'm off. Thursday is another episode of Resident Alien. Friday I'm off because we have a break between Disney Plus shows going on. Saturday will be another episode of Saturday Morning Blast Off, where I take the genre news of the weekend and your genre stuff you guys want to talk about, and we talk about it. Sunday and Monday I'll be off. Tuesday will be another episode of Is It Worth My Time? And I don't know what I'm doing as of yet. We'll see what I come up with. It'll probably be something live action this time around because I've done 2 animated series in a row, and we'll go over to live action now at this point. Wednesday I'll be off. Thursday will be another episode of Resident Evil. And then, of course, Friday, next Friday, will be the premiere of Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's right, Falcon and Winter Soldier. And it's all up on the schedule, like Penn just put there in the chat there for you. That's right, it's all at suspendedfanimation.com. So, oh, yeah, it's been a long day for me. So, I'm going to let you guys go for the night. Thank you to everybody who joined me tonight in the chat. And thank you if you made it this far in the video. If you're still on the fence about subscribing, take a look at the video that pops up at the very end here. And if you like what you see there, hit that subscribe button. And while you're down there, hit that like button and the share button as well. And if you want to know when to be on live again next, hit that bell down below. It's a 50-50 chance of YouTube actually notifying you. Best thing to do is go to suspendedfanimation.com. Take a look at the schedule I have up there. Also, all the links to my social media are there and all the pages that I have as well. So this YouTube channel, my Facebook page, and a Facebook group page where you guys can post stuff and chat amongst yourselves. All right. Thank you, everybody. I will see you again on Thursday for Resident Alien. Until then, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, you may wind up becoming the Kaiju Messiah and being worshipped from afar by people in robes and masks, because that's just how they are. Thanks, everybody. I will see you again on Thursday. Until then, stay safe, be well, take care, and wear those masks and get those vaccines. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you later. Have a good night.